and welcome to another evening of frank conversation here on Hard Copy, coming to you from our studios in Abuja. I'm Maokpe Ogun Yusuf. Tonight, we bring you the concluding part of our interview with Senator Ekweremadu, a former three-time Deputy Senate President who currently chairs the Senate Committee on Environment and is a member of the Senate Committees on the Review of the 1999 Constitution, Judiciary and Human Rights, and INEC. Senator Ekweremadu has always been an advocate for state police, proposing legislation to support subnational governments in this regard. However, in this session, he faults the creation of regional policing outfits, saying they were formed in panic, hence their questionable level of success. We've seen these same panic measures, which is what you term these outfits that have a reason, set up in other parts of the country as well. Yes. And Motekon came up, and till today they're still standing. We even saw a story of success in recent times where they were able to help apprehend kidnappers who had taken people into the bush in Ondo State. Yet you say that it's failed in the Southeast because it was set up in a panic matter. For those who saw the situation in the Southeast, they felt the move by the state governors was coming a little too late because it would seem that non-state actors, whom the people tend to listen to, had already taken over the security space.
Yes, of course, there were disappointments at some level. You know, but you see, government is supposed to have monopoly of coercive force, right? So on whatever level the government comes in, if they have sufficient coercive power, they should be able to police the environment. So, but as it is now, it's difficult. And so if you have non-state actors with AK-47 and all of that, and then government can provide just pump action for their own security outfits because there is a law stopping them from carrying those sophisticated arms. Remember, under the Constitution, you cannot have any other police except the police force of Nigeria. So whatever you call it, it's not a police. And then there's the limit to what you give them in terms of arms. But they are dealing with non-state actors that have access to sophisticated weapons. So that is why if you send out those people, maybe say forest guard or whatever I call them, to go and confront these guys, they can't match them. But if they are allowed in a controlled manner to be able to carry sufficient arms, you know, in terms of the firepower, then they should be able to contend with these people. So I was asking the state governor, so why are we not talking about drones to be able to locate it? They say you need approval from the federal government to do that. And how do they get this approval? You see, so if we have a conversation and agree that governors or state government should be able to set up their own level of police and equip them the best way they can under a controlled atmosphere or regulation by a federal outfit, just like in judiciary, some of these things you are seeing will stop. There are states that can equip their police sufficiently to take care of them. So any person who wants security can go and live in that state. Those who don't want to secure their people will live there, desert them. Right? So, and I know not very many states will have the resources to do that. But that is fine. Those who can, let them do it. Those who cannot, let federal government try to help them with the regular federal police, which is what is done in other places, from Canada to Australia, to all places where they have a federal government. So that's why I think we need to have a conversation. And I said sometime in the past, that it's not as if it's rocket science to set up subnational police. We can do this under 2 weeks, under 1 month. If we all sit down and agree on all of this, and our National Assembly members say, look, this is the legislation. The State Assembly says, you just wait for it. Next week, we are coming back to you with National Assembly's a resolution. You pass, and the President signs. And then let's see which states will be able to implement it, so that we're able to secure our boundaries. And remember, too, why we do that, we also need to make sure they are putting food in the table of Nigerians. We have to create employment for them as a complementary to the issue of security. So these are the complementary issues.
As it stands, though, it doesn't look like that is going to be on the front burner at the National Assembly now that you're back from recess.
No, I think the committee is dealing with it. I'm sure the committee is eager to have this concluded as soon as possible.
Well, the National Assembly seemed to have closed in some sort of controversy, which is the electoral matters, the electoral amendment bill, which had come up for passage just before the National Assembly went on recess. And I think the biggest issue there was whether or not there will be electronic transmission or not. The Senate, it would seem, voted against it. In the House of Reps, theirs was a little unclear. I think they said that they will allow INEC decide what INEC wants to do with regards to that. But it looks like there has been some discontent with regards to that. How do you think we can have a situation whereby there is true legitimacy from those who eventually emerge from amongst the people?
Well, thank you. I think the thing that's very worrisome in this issue of electoral reform presently is what seems to be a politicization, of our electoral reforms, which we never had before. I've been on this since 2008. I was part of the drafting of the 2010 Act. Actually, we passed it in 2009. There were amendments that were requested to be done by the presidency, so that was why it delayed until 2010 when we passed it, and that's the one we're still using. Now, at that point, we were of the view that INEC should be given free hands to decide whether they can do electronic voting or not. So my colleagues were not comfortable, and they insisted we should outlaw it after we had presented our recommendation. So it was kind of outlawed. They said that the use of electronic voting is hereby outlawed, when what we wanted is to introduce it. So we left it at that. So about early in 2015, we were able to convince them, and we passed an amendment to that act, recommending, or rather providing, that INEC can apply electronic voting, which stands till now has to remain the law. Now, recently, this issue of the Electoral Act, the repeal and reenactment came up. And luckily, I'm also in the committee on the Independent Electoral Commission. And so, when we looked at all of that, I saw there was an issue of transmission. So there's sort of a technical committee to look at all of this, which I also was a member. INEC was representing civil society. So it was at that level that I personally introduced the issue of transmission. So because I convinced my colleagues that that's the best way to go, especially when I had witnessed the power of electronic transmission in a day election and what it can do to cut off thuggery, rigging, and manipulation. So after a lengthy discussion that took us like 2 days, they eventually agreed, and we now included it. So by the time we submitted in the National Assembly, they delayed the passage until June. When the matter now came up, we discovered that that has also been altered by some forces I don't understand. So we had to struggle to bring it back in the draft of the law before it was sent to the National Assembly. And when it got to the National Assembly, the Assembly was divided between APC and PDP. If you remember that PDP is in the minority.
Senator, you confirmed that that was altered.
Yes.
Was it before it went back to the National Assembly?
Yes, before it went after we finished our committee discussion and agreement on all the provisions.
Because we have the Senate President on tape saying that at no point in time...
I'm in the committee.
Was it altered?
Yeah, I'm in the committee.
Or tampered with?
The chairman of the committee knows what I'm talking about. So, but I don't want to talk about who to tamper and what to... But at the point that it was tampered with, then eventually we all agreed at the committee to restore it. And then it was submitted. But because it has already been politicized, and the APC is in majority in the National Assembly, so expectedly, since they took a party position on this, so if you vote 1 million times, they will win. Right? So, but the good thing is that in the House of Reps, they were able to find a middle ground, in spite of all the problems they had there. And so this meant that they passed a different thing from the Senate. So the legislative implication is that we're going to have a conference committee. They're going to agree whether it is Senate version or the House version. So the good thing about that is that we're going to have equal number of senators and equal member of the House. So it's going to be a matter of reasoning and conviction that will now decide which will carry the day. And hopefully, the composition will cut across the party lines.
You spoke of a party position. Only recently we had cause to speak with the governor of Kaduna State, whose state recently conducted local government elections using electronic voting.
Yes.
And we brought this issue to him in terms of what happened in the National Assembly. And he says that he's not aware that there is a party position on the matter, but he thinks that electronic voting, even voting, not just even transmission now, is the way to go. Do you think that perhaps the National Assembly could leverage on the understanding of people like that to influence members of the party?
That's what I'm saying. The fact that we've had our vacation, people have consulted widely. They've seen the feelings of Nigerians and international community in terms of the way the voting went, especially in the Senate. So I'm hopeful that most of our colleagues are coming with a new attitude to this. Especially, we INEC have insisted that they can do not just electronic voting, but also electronic transmission. And this is the electoral management body. And remember, we're not forcing INEC to use electronic means to conduct the election. We say, look, you have the leverage. You are the people on the ground. You understand this whole thing. So if you can, for Christ's sake, use electronic means. And they say they can. Then some people say they can't. I don't understand it.
Were you disappointed when the chairman of that committee voted against electronic transmission?
Well, I don't want to make a judgment on that. He's my friend. But he knows how I feel about it. Because we had so much conversation at the committee level and all of this. And I told him clearly, look, you are the chairman of this committee. The decision we take here will either make or mar you. You'll be remembered for being the author of electronics and a reform in the electoral system. So don't allow any person to deceive you. You have to be as if you are going to take responsibility. And those conversations weighed his mind when we eventually allowed that to go to the plenary. You know, so if he decided that to vote against, that's what I'm saying, that it was also a party decision. So you can understand that. So I pity him. You know, it was uncalled for. You know, it was not expected. That was why I'm emphasizing that it was a party thing. I know I've been an old politician. I'm sure he understands the issue of party loyalty. But it cannot be to the detriment of our national development.
On the whole, when you look at the Nigerian state and all the issues that are agitating for attention, I mean, only recently, the president, when you resumed from recess, it was a question of loans. The president asking for $42 billion to get new loans, well, which was already presented before in the MTEF, and even some millions of euros. And there are questions as to whether Nigeria can continue to afford to take these loans, whether we're liquid enough to pay back, what we can do to grow our revenue, because we keep getting told that, oh, our GDP to debt ratio is okay. It is a GDP to revenue ratio which we should worry about. And as somebody who is in the National Assembly, which to scrutinize what the proposals that the executive arm of government is making for the good of the country, are you worried that we could be making progress, or we're not making progress at all?
You know, we've entered into a big debt trap in the past. I'm very worried that we are going back to the era of the debt trap. And most likely it's going to be even worse than what we had before. The reason is that our borrowing scheme, you know, is extremely worrisome, where most of this loan is coming from individual countries like China. Because we cannot be talking about debt forgiveness with a country, right? So for them, it is investment. So what happens is that if you use the money from China to do infrastructures, those infrastructures belongs to them until you pay. And if you don't pay, they can take up such infrastructures, take it over. Something like the airport, railway, and all of that. It has happened in many countries. So, but if you are borrowing from multilateral agencies like World Bank, IMF, and all of that, a decision can be made at the highest level for debt forgiveness. It's not going to happen with China. So it's not just the borrowing that's the problem, but also where we're borrowing from. So I worry for our future. You know, so the earlier we slow down, the better for all of us. Are
you going to air this worry on the floor of the National Assembly?
Definitely. I've done that in the past, and I'll do it again. It doesn't matter what decision comes about. Let it be on record, you know, that we're warned that this is extremely dangerous.
Do you think that the National Assembly is scrutinizing enough the loans which the country is taking?
Well, the government policy, the federal government policy, is that they need to do infrastructures using loans and hoping that it will help us to develop. That's their own understanding of what they are doing. And luckily to them, they have enough people from their party that can help to drive this through. Right? So, but you see, the problem is that there's going to be a future. So this future will affect everybody, whether PDP or APC. Right? It's going to be a major burden on the country and our children. He won't care which party your father belongs to. So that's the mistake we are making. So it's not just they are supporting the government of the day because it belongs to their party. But you must also understand that there's end to everything, including government. So when all these are over, and we sit down and reflect our roles in it, some people will be full of regrets. So this is time to think wisely, across party lines, no matter where you belong.
On the issue of VAT, you've asked states, or you've asked the National Assembly not to intervene in the matter, that this should get to the highest court and let it run its course.
Yeah.
Why have you said that?
You know, you see, it's been a long time I've been warning that our states should begin to find alternative means of deriving their revenue instead of waiting for federal government to be giving them money every month. What I called Biofederalism. It's extremely dangerous. And nobody cared to listen. Right? So we've talked about restructuring. And I believe that under a restructured federation, every country, every part of Nigeria will benefit. Because it's about the management of our resources. Every part of Nigeria has sufficient solid mineral. I'm not talking of the liquid mineral, like oil and gas. I'm talking of solid mineral, gold, diamond, and all of that. Every part. But today, they are being stolen. So, but if we have a proper restructuring where we ask states under a concurrent arrangement to manage those solid minerals, then they can sell them legitimately, can mine them legitimately, and they make money. But nobody wants to care. Some are stealing those solid minerals and still benefiting from the oil and gas. So it is also with the VAT.
Sorry.
So the problem...
Are you saying that states are stealing the minerals?
I'm not saying some people are stealing under state watch.
Okay.
I'm not saying the state. There can't be official stealing anyway.
Just clarifying.
Yeah, you know, I'm just saying that under state watch. Some people are taking them, people from China, other parts of the world, coming to certain states. They mine this our solid mineral in collusion with sometimes with state officials, and they're taken away from Nigeria. And this part of the problem we have, especially in the northwest, all this banditry and all of that. Some of them are related with the solid mineral theft, because some of those people who are helping them who are getting the natives to help them to also provide the arms. I'm sure the armed forces, they know this.
So why wouldn't the National Assembly just intervene? Well,
how are they going to intervene? Anyway, coming back to VAT and all of that, the problem there is that if you look at our legislative list, you will not see VAT either in the exclusive list or in the concurrent list. They are not talking about profit tax, capital gains tax, and income tax. No mention was made in respect of consumption tax. So, under Section 4(7) of the Constitution, anything that's not mentioned in either the exclusive list or in the concurrent list belongs to what we call the residual list. So that's the argument these governors are making. You know, so, but we need to have a conversation and find a political solution around it, and probably do a legislation that will be acceptable to everybody. Right? So, but until that happens, the only solution is to allow the whole legal process to take place up to the Supreme Court. Maybe the Supreme Court should be able to come up with a decision that will be acceptable to everyone. Or even if they come up with a decision, a judgment that is not acceptable to everybody, we can then come back and reason together. So that we should be our brother's keepers.
Do you think it buttresses the argument of those who say that we have not even finished implementing the Constitution which we have at hand? We're all talking of restructuring.
That's the problem, because the Constitution, the origin of the Constitution is suspicious, right? or not entrenched. Because when Abubakar regime set up a committee headed by Nikki Tobia, they were given, I think, 60 days to draft a constitution. You can't write a constitution in 60 days. So they were forced to put something together and submit. So there were a lot of mistakes in it. There were a lot of inconsistencies in it, right? So if you look at section 80, 81, 83, section 162, section 121, 120, you know, all of them talking about consolidated revenue for the federation account in terms of funding of judiciary and all of that. You can see all kinds of modeling up. Right now, nobody's sure whose responsibility it is to fund costs in the states. Some part of the country say, oh, it's the responsibility of the federal government. Some are saying, oh, it's the responsibility of the state government. Right?
Was not including VAT a mistake as well?
That's what I'm saying.
You think it's a mistake?
Of course, because it's not properly situated anywhere. It was a mistake. And that's what led to this. Because even if you didn't use the word VAT, if you just say consumption tax, they will understand it as that, but there's no such mention. You know? And when we tried over the time to put these things in the proper perspective, you know, especially the issue of realignment of the legislative list, of course, they didn't sign it. You know? So these are some of the problems we have. We'll make effort in National Assembly to be able to put things in the right place, and so that some of those mistakes in the Constitution are corrected. And then you take 2-3 years, waste all your time and resources. At the end of the day, it's not signed.
So you actually think that the federal government should collect consumption tax?
No, you see, this is a country under law. No, wait.
Yeah.
We have what we call rule of law. The federal government cannot collect something that's not mentioned in the law. They cannot.
But ideally.
No, it's not. You see, that is the ideal thing, is what the law says. Right? So remember, we run a federal system of government.
The law didn't say anything about it.
Yeah, so that's why we're saying, let's see what the Supreme Court says. So when we finish with the Supreme Court, if there's anything that needs to be talked, we can sit down and talk about it.
The reason I'm asking this is because you say that the non-inclusion of VAT or consumption tax in the Constitution was a mistake.
Yes. Because even if you put in a Constitution, it's going to be either at the exclusive list or in the concurrent list. So that is it. So it was limited in both. So, and under the powers, under the provisions of the Constitution, it now becomes a state responsibility under Section 47. So that's the problem. So I don't have any problem with federal government collecting or the state government, but let the law say so. But since it's before the court, I'm not in the position to make a decision for the court. I might be wrong. So let them use their wisdom and tell us. What I don't want to see is a disruption of the judicial process, of coming to say, okay, you go amend the Constitution while the matter is in court. That's not clean. Let's allow our judiciary to advance our laws. So we have so many things like that. If you look at Section 162, it says that every money earned by the federation is put into a federation account. No provision was made for saving. So even the sovereign wealth fund is all illegal, because there's no constitutional provision for it. We amended the Constitution to ensure that we do a compulsory saving under Section 162. Again, it was never signed. So it's a sad story.
I'd like to question the optimism of this palm wine tapper on the palm wine tree.
Yeah.
Are you still optimistic?
Of course. I believe in Nigeria. I wrote a book, Who Will Love My Country. I love Nigeria. Nigeria is a big country with a lot of potentials. I've been in international organizations, both within the sub-region and outside. Nigeria is highly respected. And the respect is because of our power, of our strength. And that strength is derived from our number, our size. Everybody respects a country that is big and powerful. That's the advantage America has today. So we need to fix some of the places that's leaking in our countries, in our country, and then I think we'll be able to have a great country. And it's not rocket science. It's a matter of leadership that's committed and devoid of ethnic, religious, or any kind of sectional or political consideration. People who will see Nigeria as their own and take every part as being their brothers and sisters. And it can be done. So that's just the only problem we have. Otherwise, there's benefit of having a huge country, a big country such as Nigeria. I feel proud to say I'm a Nigerian. And I'm optimistic that this country will be great again.
Senator Ekweremadu,
Yeah.
thank you for coming on
My
Hard
pleasure.
Copy. That's the program tonight, but we want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on Nigeria's debt levels? Do you think the non-inclusion of VAT in the Constitution was a mistake? Let's hear you. Please use the handles showing on your screen. Thank you for watching. I'm Yusuf. Good night.